Okay, so good afternoon. Next presentation is about the certification program and more specifically about the new certification program. Um, so let's start. So I think that many of you know a little bit about the OCPP Certification Program. We started it in 2019, which was for OCPP 106, the version that was published in those days. And for OCPP 106, it's still the same certification program. You can get a certificate for the entire 106 specification or for parts of the 106 specification, and in addition also for the security. And for OCPP 201, the specification covers much more, so we also have more certification profiles. And to the bottom you see, I will decode it for you. You have the core functionality of the 201 specification, that's what you can certify. And then additionally, you can pick any or all of the additional profiles: security, local list management, smart charging, advanced device management, reservations, advanced user interface, and ISO 598. So you can pick whatever you want to certify. We opened the certification program for the core and the advanced security in June of 23, so already quite some time ago. And now finally we are ready to open certification program for all the additional profiles next month, I can say next month, February. So then the entire OCPP 201 specification can be certified. And we, for 201, because we have a new testing tool, which we also use for certification, we can not just certify a charging station or a backend system, but also a software stack. And since last summer, we also started using the new testing tool to certify OCPP 106. So as of that moment, we can also certify 106 software stacks. And the reason why we couldn't do that before, because the tool couldn't handle it. So the whole certification program, the procedures, the test plan, so how it all works is on the OCA website, where you can find the information for 106 and 201. Actually, the procedure is the same, so there is no difference in the procedure for both OCPP versions. You can also find the various test laboratories you can choose. There are several that you can choose from. And very importantly, all the certified products are on the website. So anybody who has ever gotten a certificate, the certificate's on the website. And I will show you what it looks like in a minute. So we have 4 certification labs in 8 locations. So here in North America, we have DNV in Rochester, New York. And DECRA has 2 locations, one where we are now in Antioch in California, and the other one is in Reston, Virginia. In Europe we have 2 locations, one by DECRA, one by DNV in the Netherlands. And DNV also has a location in Singapore. And in Korea we have 2 locations, one by KSJ and one by KTC. What you can see maybe later on is the certification program. There are not that many certifications, so in that sense you may wonder how many certification labs are needed. We do know that there are many places in the world where certification labs want to open, so we get approached a lot by labs in a certain region and ask us, can we become a certification lab? The policy of OCA is that we only open certification labs in countries where the government requires OCPP. And which is of course the case in Korea, it's in the case of North America, in the Netherlands definitely, and Singapore. So that's important to note that, so we don't place certification labs in regions for export. There needs to be a domestic market for that. As I mentioned, on the website you see all the certified products. You can search for a specific company or a specific certificate. And this is really important to double check if you can find a certificate here, if you want to double check if the vendor actually has a certificate. And what you can't see, but this, if you click on that number, actually the actual certificate opens. And I'd like to show you what the certificate looks like. And I have the example of ChargePoint, who is here. They are certified for the charging stations. for 201, but the 1.6 is very similar. So this is what the abstract of the test report, the certificate looks like, and they're all on site, so you can double check. So what you can see is who performed the testing, and of course the date, and then the software version that was certified. And there you can see which profiles are included in the certificate. So this one is core and advanced security. And then, again, as of February, it could be more than that. So when a vendor shares says, I'm certified, it's always good to check, okay, what is certified? Everything or parts, and it's all stated here in the certificate. And then OCPP describes a charging station everywhere across the planet, DC, AC, whatever. And there are a lot of configurations in OCPP, and whether or not you implement something depends on whether or not you need to test it. So there is a lot of detail, and we are trying to make this more clear, but basically here you can read what is this specific charging station. So does it have a detachable cable? Is it AC, DC? So there's a lot of detail. So whenever someone says I'm certified, you should always check, okay, but what are the capabilities of this specific charging station? Now there's much more, all the features, so there's actually quite a lot. So this is something that I wanted to share with you, that it's not just I'm certified, yes or no, but what are the details? And in the end, it's signed by the lab. This case was Gonzalo, and it's signed by Cor. And yeah. So, and if you look at the website, you can see all the details of all the certificates. Another reason why it's really important to know that the certificate's on the website where you can validate it is because of this fraud with the OCPP certificate. So this is happening, and I will show you two examples. One where you can think, okay, fraud is maybe a strong term, but also an example of real fraud. And I will share with you two examples. So here to the left, you see this is a news item in Korea, where in Korea, if you want government subsidy, you need to provide a certificate. And there have been a few irregularities, I should call them, where some vendors certified a charging station, let's say in April, and they got funding. And they started installing the charging stations as of January of the following year. And by that time, the software had gotten updated a little bit. But the software that was certified was the old software. So there was there is some investigation, and sometimes we get asked questions about the validity of the certificate and the whole procedure. So this situation in Korea has led to us thinking about how can we improve the certification program to make it easier, not just for the authorities, but also for vendors. To the right, you see something that I think personally is much worse. So we were approached by a network operator in Romania. Romania is a country in the Netherlands, in Europe. And they asked us, they said, we got this certificate, but we can't find it on your website. And then we started looking at it, and we couldn't find it also. So we thought maybe we forgot about it or we made a mistake. But if you look at the certificate number, it's a very strange number because it is OCA 0028. And if you look at the certificates, all the certificates are either 0016 for OCPP 1.6 or 0201 for OCPP 201. So there is no certificate number with 0028. Started looking into it, and then we noticed that the PDF wasn't signed, and actually the font, the type of letter is different. So this is a total fake. Yeah. Of course, I asked to the Romanian company, so can you maybe share us who gave you the certificate? Is it it's a company from China, or is it a reseller, and they are not responding. So I don't know where this comes from. So for long story short, apparently this is happening. So if you want to buy something, somebody gives you a certificate, it can be a fake, so check it on the website. Another thing is what we have added to the Since the incident with this Chinese company, we'll say, please, to verify the PDF signature, visit our verification page. And the reason for that is all these certificates are PDFs. So you could still change the PDF. So that's why all the certificates that were generated as of last summer, they are signed. So how can you verify that the signature, and the Chinese fake was no longer signed, so that was also a sure sign. So now what we've added is explanation how you can verify the signature on the PDF, just to make sure that the PDF of the certificate hasn't been altered. Yeah. But so this of course there's no excuse for this. But some situations in Korea, we thought, well, maybe we can do our bit to help improve the situation. So what can we do to improve the certification program in general? And also last year when we were at DECRA facilities, I also got several complaints from American companies about the OCPP certification program. So that also led us to make some improvements. So this is, as of March, this is a list, and I will go through them one by one. Of, if you're familiar with the current certification program, what are we going to improve upon? So on the top it says we will print the firmware image hash on the OCPP certificate, just to make sure that you know that this is the firmware that was actually tested during the certification program, just to make a better link between the actual tested software and the certificate itself. And you see from the icon that is just to make it more, less temper or more tamper proof. The second part is the product family listing, and this is the complaint that we got from vendors saying, okay, I have a charging station, there are several different models, but they all have the same OCPP software. So why should I certify all the individual models? Because one is blue, one is purple, one is pink, they don't matter. So what we always said is, you don't have to, but you can explain to your buyer that you have a certificate for the blue one, and you can convince your buyer saying, well, the purple and the yellow are the same. But what we are doing now, what we've added the product family listing, where we will say, okay, we will make a certificate where you list all the charging stations that you think are part of one family. So from the OCPP perspective, they are identical. Then the lab will select the representative product. So we'll say, okay, this charging station will cover all the functionality of the other family members. That's the charging station that the lab will test. And on the certificate, it will not only say the tested charger, but also the family members. So it's in that sense not that different from what we have now, but before we said, well, you just explain it to them, and now we'll help them explain it because it's included in the certificate. And that, of course, will make it hopefully cheaper for vendors because they have to maybe they can more easily explain. And this is what we see in Korea also, that there are some companies that certified every individual model and they didn't have to because it was the same charging station. But just to be sure, they just certified the blue one and the pink one and the yellow one. And that is, of course, it's a waste of their money. So the product family listing is going to be hopefully a big improvement. The third part is, at the moment, the test lab does the tests manually. The tool now also has an API for automated testing. And what we have included that once a product has been tested by the test lab once, and if there's an updated software, then the lab can use the API testing to do the testing much more automated. And this will make the retesting faster and therefore cheaper. The next part is the testing tool, the OCTT, is used by the labs to do the testing, but also you can buy it yourself, so you can basically repeat the same test as the lab is doing. And at the moment, the test tool gives you a report, but the report is not so clear. So what we are adding to the new version of the tool is a vendor declaration of conformance, where as a vendor you do your own testing, so it has not been tested independently by a lab, but it gives a better report which states these are the features that I needed to test and I passed all the tests. So it is not self-certification, very important to note, so that's the only certification is done by independent labs, but as a vendor you can print out a more clear test report, and you can use that as a vendor declaration of conformance and say, if your buyer accepts it, or if the funding provider accepts it, you can say, I will just give you my own vendor declaration of conformance. And then it depends on the authority to say, no, I don't accept your own declaration, I want an independent certificate. Or if your buyer says, okay, fine, I trust you, if you show me this report, and okay, it's good enough for me. I said also the certification of software stack for 1.6 is now included. The next point, how should I explain this? So when we've seen in some cases where a charging station doesn't communicate directly to the testing tool, and so in order to be sure that when you are testing against the tool is actually only talking directly to the charging station, and the charging station is communicating using OCPP, we are adding this limited access router. So you're 100% sure that you are directly talking to the charger and not being rerouted somewhere else. So we're going to add it to the test setup. And this is something that's not happening a lot, but it does happen on rare occasions. But of course, then it's not a correct certification, because then you don't test the charger, you just some cloud plugin. What we are also adding to the certificate is the notification of additional communications port. This is a little bit out of scope of OCPP, but we do think it's important to state it on the certificate. What we also see is a charger gets submitted for OCPP certification, and there is a communication port that does speak OCPP, but there's also another communication port that speaks to a cloud somewhere else. And that's of course a bit strange if we issue an OCPP security certificate. So we say that this is a charging station that's fully secure for OCPP, but at the same time there's another port wide open. So what we agreed upon as a compromise, so we asked the vendor to state on its protocol implementation conformance statement, do you have any additional communication ports? Which of course have not been tested by OCA. So when you are a buyer, you buy a charging station, at least you're notified, okay, this is a charging station, but it has another connection to another backend. And then of course, what you want to do, personal opinion is you don't want that, right? So you want either one port, or if there are other ports, they also need to be secured. And you need to know who is accessing my charging station via this other port. It's just something that's, it's good to get out in the open. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see what vendors start indicating. This part, the randomization of certification tests, we sequence and run specific tests first. This first also has to do with the vendor declaration of conformance and making sure that you can't mock the tool. If you start using the tool to do the vendor declaration of conformance, yeah, you could, I'm not sure if I can explain it correctly, but you could provide sort of a mock-up and then provide all passes. So by randomizing the test, of course, it's harder for you to mock an OCPP compliant charging station and not be truthful in that way. And the last one is determine which OCPP software version is running during the testing. That's also important, that the charger that's under test communicates via message, this is the actual software version that I'm using, which should be the same software version that will eventually be on the certificate. So, and many of these points we needed to include because of the vendor declaration of conformance. Because when you have your charger or your backend tested at a lab, there are people from DECRA or DNV or KTC that see the device and sort of do the checks. And if you offer the vendor declaration of conformance, you don't have that independent set of eyes. So we try to include more checks and balances in the procedure. So this is all the certification program if you want to certify, but of course, as you know and as DECRA knows, not everybody is certifying. So particularly what we see everywhere, but also here in the US, that companies say I'm OCPP compliant, or I'm OCPP capable, I've seen OCPP operational, OCPP ready, and yeah, if you say so. So it can be if someone says I'm OCPP compliant, it can be true, or partially true, or not true at all. So it's really up to anybody to think that this is good enough, or yeah. So for instance, I know, maybe you know the EPRI vetted product list, where EPRI has a long list of all the charging stations that are available in North America, and they keep track of all the requirements, and here you see indeed what a vendor states, I'm OCPP operational or OCPP capable. Now what does that mean? I don't know. So, and you don't know. So I think that this is something that you can work with, or you can say, no, I want something. I'm spending a lot of money on this charger, so I want to be more sure what the charger can actually do. And you've seen from the certificate that I showed from Core that there's a lot of details to check. It's not as simple as being compliant, yes or no. So if you zoom out, there are roughly 3 ways to verify OCPP compliance. Depending from the perspective, if you're a vendor, if you're trying to provide, or if you are buying a charger, or you're a partner of, like you have a network and you connect chargers to your network, or you're a funding provider. So to the left is what I disrespectfully call DIY, so do it yourself. And this I think is what a lot of companies are doing, and unfortunately a lot of buyers are accepting. Do your own testing. A lot of time you trust the vendor's word and his reputation. But if you look at the viewpoint from the OCA, we offer the 2 other ways. So to the left is the one that we already had, certification. That's the most detailed and independently verified way of checking OCPP compliance. So if you're a vendor, the verification is done by the test lab, but also OCA checks. So whenever a test is complete at the Open Charge Line, we double check it, we do some log reviews. So you also have to check by OCA. If you're a buyer, the vendor provides you with the certificate, and you can also check it at the website. So you can, as I mentioned before, it's also important. So that's to the right, but we see that between the do-it-yourself, what most parties are doing, and the certification, we now are wanting to have something in the middle, because before we sort of thought, well, yeah, everybody just certifies. Still the ideal situation. But in the middle, we are now adding the OCTD vendor declaration of conformance, where if you're a vendor, you can provide the vendor declaration of conformance report to your buyer. And what you can do as a buyer or partner, so okay, I trust this vendor's vendor declaration of conformance. Because what we think is, if you tamper with the vendor declaration of conformance, that's really like fraud. And we think that like 99.99% of the market isn't committing fraud. Like I think that the fraud test report, certificate that I showed you is like an exception. I hope it's an exception. So we hope that more and more the market will use either the vendor declaration of conformance and certification program. So that's what we aim to do, to move the market more to the right. And I'd love to hear your opinion about this, maybe later if you have some time during the Q&A. So do you agree that, but I can be really honest, this is not good enough, really. That's my opinion. Then, certification for all profiles. So finally, it took a long time, but we are ready to open a certification program for all the additional profiles for 201. And why has it taken so long? Why does it take so much time? And the reason for that is this picture. So we have a specification, and a part of the specification is we define the test cases that validate what's written in the specification. Then we include those test cases in our testing tool, but there are a lot of bugs in our testing tool, or the test case description is not accurate, or even the specification is not clear enough. So when vendors start implementing the specification and use the tool, we find a lot of bugs. Bugs in the tool, bugs in the test case description, or even bugs in the specification. And it just takes a long time to flush out all the bugs. But with the hard work of 6 implementations, we have completed, and we are now sufficiently satisfied that everything's sort of correct. Of course, maybe in the future when someone tests against the tool and they still find a bug, but then we'll fix it. But at the moment, I think we are confident that all the testing is now correct enough to open the certification of the additional profiles. And in the next slide, you will see the 6 parties that helped us debug. So these are, we call them front runners, that are about to pass their certification test in the coming weeks. On the top, you see 3 CSMSs. So Kevit, back office, from Korea, here. You see ITE from Spain and Vattenfall from the Netherlands. And as a CSMS, they will certify for all the profiles. If you're a backend, it's a little bit easier to certify. If you're a charging station, it's a little bit harder. There are more test cases that you need to pass. So you see IO Charger from China, Trialog from France, they're actually a software stack. And Ubitricity, they are from Germany. And here you see which profiles they will pass, and they will receive their certificates shortly. And you can see, it's a very colorful picture. So again, with regards to certification, if you're ready for certification, you can contact all of the labs. They all do all the same services, whichever you prefer. And you can apply for certification for 106, 201, or 201, all the additional profiles. So if you want to be included in the whole certification program, we have, at OCA, we have a compliance working group, and this is the working group that discusses test cases, test plans, all the improvement in the certification program, that's all being discussed there. So if you want to be more involved in shaping the certification program, then please join the compliance working group. That was my presentation. I'm looking forward to your reactions. No. So that exactly is in the certification procedure. It describes what the product family method is. So what the lab does do is they certify the representative product and they double check the family members with the VDCR. So at the time of, so you have to state at the time where you get the certificate what the family members are. So you cannot later on add new family members to an already published certificate. But it's all described in the product, in the certification procedure, how that would actually work. Yeah. What you can do if later on you have a product that 1 year later still has the same software version, you can always run the vendor declaration of conformance and say that's exactly the same. But we don't update certificates. Any other questions? No? No? Oh, no? Okay, that was it.
Plugfest that I think is no longer